start lesson 3, we've been identifying those 6 trig functions where everything has been positive. So everything has been considered in quadrant 1 on the coordinate plane. So now we're going to look at the 6 trig functions outside quadrant 1. So we're going to have to deal with some negatives. So if we're given the information that says find the 6 trig functions if the given point lies on the terminal side, this is really not an ordered pair. It's not the ordered pair -1, 5. Those are really directions. So, remember, when you graph or you find ordered pairs, the x value of your ordered pair tells you either left or right. The y value tells you either up or down. So that -1 is our x, 5 is y. So because the x value is negative, that means we're going to go to the left. The y value is positive, so that means we're going to go up. Alright, so there's our right triangle. Now, theta is always at the origin. So theta will always be here. Alright, now I can do Pythagorean theorem, find that missing hypotenuse, and find my 6 trig functions. So when I do Pythagorean theorem, I've got to remember that that leg is -1. So I need to make sure I put -1 in parentheses. If not, it's going to change my answer. And make sure that -1 goes in parentheses. Alright, other thing to remember is your hypotenuse is always positive. No matter what, it's always going to be positive. So when I do Pythagorean theorem here, I end up with a hypotenuse of 5.1. Alright, now I'm going to label opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. So there's the opposite, there's the adjacent side, there's my hypotenuse. Now I can identify my 6 trig functions. So sine, remember, so sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Tangent is the opposite over adjacent. Now, 5 over -1 can be simplified to -5, so I'm going to simplify it. Alright. Then I'm going to flip them around and find the inverse. So sine goes with cosecant. And I'm going to flip that over. Cosine goes with secant. So I'm going to flip the cosine over, which is -5.1. And cotangent goes with tangent. So that's going to be -1/5. Alright, top of page 11. So this time your directions, you've got a positive x value, so that means I'm going to go to the right, and a negative y value, so that means I'm going to go down. And theta is always there, and there's my right angle. So I'm going to do my Pythagorean theorem, and I get a hypotenuse of 5. It's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. So now I've got, let's see, sine, cosine, tangent, so let's see, we've got our opposite here, adjacent here, and our hypotenuse here. So sine, opposite over hypotenuse, is going to be -4/5. Cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, 3/5. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. Alright, now we're just going to flip them all over. 5 over -4, 5 over 3, and 3 over -4. Okay, now at the bottom of page 11, you're going to be given one of the 6 trig functions into quadrant. So you're not going to be given the little order pair direction set. To do this, first thing you want to do is draw that triangle in the given quadrant. So in this one, we're drawing it in quadrant 2. So my triangle would go here. Now remember, these are going to look, it creates a bow with all your triangles. Wherever quadrant you're in, it's going to look like that shape. It's going to create a bow. Because theta is always here, and your right angles are always here. So you know what it should look like just based on the bow. So we've got theta's there, there's our right angle. Now you're given cosine. So remember that cosine is adjacent over the hypotenuse. So my adjacent side would be here, and that's -5, which makes sense because you've gone to the left on that x-axis, which should be negative. All right, then your hypotenuse is 13, and remember your hypotenuse is always positive. So now I've got 2 sides of my triangle, and I can do Pythagorean theorem to find the third side. When I do that, I get 12. Alright, so I've been given one trig function. I just got to find the other 5. So we've got cosine. So we need sine, which is opposite over hypotenuse. Got cosine, so we're going to go down to tangent, which is opposite over adjacent. Alright, now we're going to flip them over. So cosecant, which is 13 over 12. I still have to find the secant, because I got 5 more. So the secant is 13 over -5, and the cotangent is -5 over 12. Okay. Alright, so you're given your cotangent, and you're told your triangle is in quadrant 2. So I'm going to go to quadrant 2, go ahead and draw my triangle. There's theta, there's my right angle. Alright, and cotangent is the opposite of tangent, which is opposite over adjacent. So this means it's adjacent over opposite. So our adjacent side is -2, and our opposite side is 3. So Pythagorean theorem will give us our third side, which is 3.6. So now we're going to find sine, which is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine, which is adjacent over the hypotenuse, tangent, which we can just flip over cotangent. Now we can flip them over. So cosecant and secant. Okay, last example. So this time you're given quadrant 4. So quadrant 4 looks like this. Theta's there and a right angle. Now with the direction you're given the tangent is -2 over 3. So tangent is opposite over adjacent, but you're not told which one is negative. The negative is out front. So the opposite side is here. The adjacent side is here. So now I have to use common sense and figure out which one should be negative. Remember, if you go to the right, it's positive, but if you go down, it's negative. So the 2 should be negative. Alright, so I'm going to do Pythagorean theorem and get my third side, my hypotenuse. Remember, your hypotenuse is always positive. So now we can do our other 5 functions.